sessions on some of the bills before today. The first bill we will be taking up for work session is LD 560. This is an act regarding patient information under the Maine Medical Use of Marijuana Act. And one thing I will say, and we haven't had a problem with this at all today, which I'm really grateful for. But one thing we always just like to say is, when we're doing public hearings and work sessions, we appreciate it that folks here, that there's no outbursts of applause or anything. And especially when these are issues that people are very emotional and passionate about. That hasn't been an issue today, which I really appreciate. Other days on other issues, that hasn't always been the case. So it's worth stating. So thank you. Now, they'll take us away on this, and then I know we have someone from some experts here to speak to this as well. All right. Way to go. By the way, I never introduced our legislative analyst, Michael O'Brien, who's going to be walking us through a lot of the work sessions on this too. Anyway, we really appreciate the work he does. So if you're wondering who this guy is, this is our legislative analyst on these issues. Yes, Representative.
We're all going to work awfully hard today, but this guy's going to be the hardest fucking guy in there.
Good morning, everyone. So I prepared the bills today. Everything's going to be coming out in one package, and I'll give Annie a moment to distribute them. But there's going to be one package here that has the bill titles, the bill summaries, the statutes that are impacted, and any unallocated language, as well as the fiscal impact. And this will provide hopefully provide a useful roadmap to the entire Medical Use of Marijuana Act, which I've done my very best to engross the different changes and color code them so that the committee can efficiently navigate through this process today. I also have folded the testimony into the salmon colored sheet, and then there's a few attachments of proposed amendments and one fiscal impact statement as well. So we can work through, and I know that there's a bunch of folks in the room that you would probably like to hear from as well. It's at different points throughout the day. So. And I would like to just say very briefly to those folks who were concerned about the short notice, I suggested that. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to say, but I'm a nonpartisan staff, and I did that. I asked the chairs because I thought it would be efficient, because a lot of those individuals would be here for the work sessions today. So that was not in any way an attempt by the committee or the department or anyone else to try to phase anyone out. That was my recommendation because we have a tight schedule. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Let me clarify that. You know, the scheduling of stuff in front of this committee is determined by the chair. So
Right.
I appreciate that.
Right.
I appreciate you saying that, but you don't need to take any responsibility for the way we conduct business in this room. This bill came to us very late. we had to make a decision, knowing that we were gonna be working these other 11 or 12 bills today, about how we were gonna act with this new bill that came to us. And again, as I alluded to a few minutes ago, you know, at the end of the session, sometimes bills come from the governor's office or other avenues very, very late in the day, and we have to decide what it is we're gonna do with that. So, you know, that's why we're postured here today. It makes us a little bit on our normal course, but, you know, I think this committee's here today prepared to do the work we need to do today. I don't know if we'll get through all this stuff today or make all these decisions today, but, you know, we're gonna sit here today and look at these bills. So thank you for saying that, but again, you know, Senator Brakey and I are accountable for the way we schedule things. And if people are upset with that, you don't have to own that, so thank you.
Absolutely.
But people are always more welcome to blame us than everything.
That's fine.
Joking about that.
Okay, so I'll just give Andy one moment. But so if we're going to begin, thank you. We're going to begin with LD 560, and again, what's in front of you is all that I'm going to be distributing here today, at least at the outset. And it was an attempt to be efficient as we work through the many bills before us for the remainder of the day. And so 560, if the committee would turn to page 2 of the legal size document, at the top of that page is LD 560. And LD 560 is an act regarding patient information under the Maine Medical Use of Marijuana Act. And this bill, which was originally a concept draft, states that the department shall not require healthcare providers to send personally identifying patient information over the internet, including name, address, and date of birth. The amendment language that was submitted is the first page of this purple packet here, and I will also direct you to page 20 of the regular sized white packet, and about halfway down the page you'll see where paragraph M fits into the entire statute here. And so I don't know if, because there's a lot of bills, and just to be clear also, the salmon color packet has a summary of some of the testimony. It was my best attempt that there was a lot of the bills were worked in groups, and so some of the stuff may not make its way into all of the different sections, but I did my best to ensure that it applied, or that the majority of the testimony is captured in this document. And so it's obviously up to the committee how they'd like to proceed. I know that the sponsor, Representative Russell, can't be here today, but Ms. Bellows, I believe, is also working with her on this amendment. So if the committee has any questions about the intent of the language, I know that she's available. And then I believe that this was also the bill that the committee requested the presence of the individual who designed the web portal that's been discussed. And I believe that Mr. Albert has that individual present with him today. So the committee would like to hear from them. They're here as well.
Right, could we hear first from the individual who's going to work on the web portal? And then Jenna's, I'm sure, going to be here with us all day, so well, we can use her time to build. But is he present right now?
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Great. Thank you very much for making yourself available today. So, I don't. Were you here? I know some folks in the past bill raised their concerns and about this. I guess could you speak a little bit to us more about what this portal does, how it functions, and address any of the concerns that you may have heard earlier, and then if we have additional questions, we'll
I can certainly do that.
Great.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Dan Andrews. I'm the general manager of Inform Me. We do the Maine.gov online website, as well as various services for the state. So I can speak in general terms of the service, but I did bring our director of development as well to speak on a more technical level, eloquently to a technical aspect than I can. But we worked with the Department of Health and Human Services on this online service as a way for providers to issue certifications to patients. Basically, it allows them to log in securely, work with the patient, and then issue a certification, which is generated as a PDF and then printed at the office on paper that is provided by the department. In very rough terms.
So the information, I guess, so the information people are concerned, I'm trying to remember what information people are specifically concerned about. I guess this bill addresses name, address, date of birth. So that information from how is not transmitted, or
So just a broad overview of what happens, patient meets with a provider in their office.
Right.
The provider logs in. They do type into the online service
Right.
the name of the patient as well as their address for the purposes of later populating the PDF that they print. So it is typed into an online service, but it is not retained.
okay.
Concern information. So
Okay.
it's not retained or saved.
I guess I wonder, and I can understand why people would be concerned. They're entering this information, and then I guess the information that HHS gets is extracted from that, right? Or that's what it sounded like. But you only take what is it? It's over 18
Yep.
and zip code?
Yep, the actual information that we do retain for their reporting purposes is the date that the certification occurred, the provider, whether the patient was over or under 18, as well as their zip code.
Okay. All right. Couple other questions. Senator Haskell and then Representative. Let me make a list here. So.
Thank you. The word that you used was retain. My question is, do you receive that rest of that information?
Of course. The reason that we receive it is that the information needs to be printed on the card that the user is going to be given. So we need to have them in order to print on their card. However, the online system literally does not store that information. We retain it only long enough to produce that PDF file that is printed on the special card. Our database does not contain that information.
Where is that card printed?
The card is printed in the provider's office.
In the provider's office.
Yes.
And so when you say we, and I need to understand, you said that that information is actually transmitted. How far is it transmitted? From the computer to your printer in the caregiver's office?
It gets a round trip to a web server. The provider types the patient's name and address and other information into a web page. That information is sent to our web server here in Augusta, which is not under the control of the department, by the way. They're very independent about that. We then take that information and create a printable document, which is then printed on the provider's printer in the provider's office.
So that's sent back to the, all right. So there are two ways in which that name, the information that's of concern here, the name and the address and the date of birth, are actually transmitted from the caregiver to InfoMe, from InfoMe back to the caregiver.
That's correct.
And what's extracted from that are the non-identifiable pieces of information that are then sent to DHHS for Inform Me.
The only pieces of information that are saved are, yes, the zip code, the identity of the provider,
And the over under
the
18.
date of the certification, and whether or not the patient was over or under 18 years of age.
And so that's transmitted from the Inform Me server to DHHS.
They have access to that information.
They have access to it, they go onto your site to grab it? Okay, so you don't transmit it, they can request it from your server.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just a housekeeping note for the committee. You just have distributed to you a copy of a medical marijuana program certificate, so we can review that what it looks like. That being said, we have to, I guess because of the nature of these certificates, these have to be returned, so don't slip this in your, yeah, don't slip this in your folder or throw it away or anything like this, so.
Fill in my own name.
We can, yeah, don't fill in your own name. This has to be, so this is for us to review now, but this has to be returned. So just housekeeping note. Representative Mallory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this information encrypted for transmission purposes?
Of course, yes, it's encrypted using high-grade digital encryption, the same sort of thing that would protect your credit card number when doing business with Amazon.com or any other online service.
And it is therefore encrypted within your servers?
Well, the only information that is saved is not patient information. It's only the elements that I've mentioned before.
Because you don't save personally identifiable information, are you not, or are you a covered entity? Do you know what that means?
Under HIPAA, no. No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Stefan.
This could be the dumbest question all day, so I'll just get it out of the way right away. But why not just let section 2, name, address, and date of birth be filled in at the provider's office? Why do you need to see it? Why can't they just send you the stuff that gets passed on?
I can't answer that question. Our job was to build software to the department's specifications. As to the reason for the business process, I'd have to defer to the department.
It's a great answer.
Peter. Representative Hines.
Thanks. We've heard a lot about people just being distrustful of keystrokes that lead to someplace into the black box. And I understand that. And then have it, even if they're assured that it just comes back and the data's gone. We've heard so many data breaches, and it's hard to know where that fingerprint gets left or that trace gets left, and you're signing into a government website for this information. So I too, if that's the only information that you need, the over 18, under 18, provider, zip code, then why not just ask for that information and have everything else be populated at the place of service so somebody can see their information. I think we've heard that a lot from people. I can understand that. That's not a question. It's a comment.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same as Representative
Yeah,
Stucker's
right.
question, and I think that's an interesting question, but I don't think I can answer it.
No, I understand that. I'm just putting it out to the universe. Thank you.
I'll ask a question.
Yep, Representative Gattini.
So again, you guys are you're a company that's a contractor for the state to maintain this information. You've got other work that you do.
Yeah, our job is to run the Maine.gov portal and to
Right.
produce all of the various applications that are on there for DW purposes. This is
Right.
one of them.
So we have a long-term contract with the state, so we do, like Todd said, Maine.gov Florida, we do payment processing separately.
So at some point, the department came to you with some specifications, requirements for modifying, for creating or modifying the current system to do this work. And if we wanted to see more detail around what those specifications are, either in terms of the change to your scope of work or some sort of requirements, and then design documents, you guys have all that information there.
Yeah, I think we could probably help with that. And I should point out at this point that the department was extremely clear with us from the beginning that the design of the system should be to exclude them from ever obtaining any of this information that is
So I was going to ask those questions. So there is not an ability, the department doesn't have any kind of like search access or ability to go in and code into the database and pull, sort of information out on an ad hoc basis.
Other than the information that I have mentioned, those 4 little bits of not very personal information, no, they can't because I built the systems are not able to record the information. I can't tell you, so I can't tell them, so they can't tell anyone.
Thank you.
So, I don't know, there'll be some other questions. So my question is, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, or maybe someone else might need to answer this. So the language we have in front of us says, the Department of Health and Human Services shall not require healthcare providers to send personally identifying patient information over the internet, including name, address, and date of birth. So it sounds like, according to the way the system is currently set up, that's not, that's not taking place. It is taking. So I guess my question is, if this were passed, would this language as it is change anything about how the system is currently set up would have to function? Or do you think the system that's set up as it currently functions already meets the standard?
Well, the system does currently collect name and address, of course, and it collects that for the purpose of printing that on the card. If this were to become law, the system would no longer be able to collect that information and would not be able to print that information on the card.
So the information, so I must be missing something. So I thought that you put it in there, so I guess in the process of it being entered and printed on the card, that's considered that's a transfer over the internet?
Yes, the information is typed in, is sent to a web server. The web server creates from that information a printable file, which is sent back to the provider to be printed. That's the only time that information is done, so that one quick round trip to create a document that's printed on that special piece of paper that you get them to create the cards.
I guess my question is, now, and I imagine some of the, I don't know, I don't want to speak for anyone else who might speak to this, but I would imagine maybe some of the concerns might be that even if the Department of Health and Human Services isn't taking this information or using this information, if it is transferred at some point, I mean, we hear about on the federal level all the data collection and everything that goes on the federal level, and the simple fact that it's being transferred over the internet at any point, does that create a vulnerability where if the federal government were to decide that they wanted this information, that creates a scenario where they could have a path to potentially access that information?
Yeah, technically it could be, I mean, it is possible. No computer security professional is ever going to tell you that any system is absolutely secure. However, I will tell you, since I do deal with this on a daily basis, almost all such data breaches are done with, are of data that has been stored on the machine and is then stolen from that machine. Very, very, very few data breaches happen with data that is actually in transit as it crosses the internet in an encrypted form. That's the hard way. Attackers go after stored information.
Okay.
And that's why you will, for instance, see breaches of millions of credit card numbers, because they cracked open the database. If they were doing it with credit card numbers that are actually flowing across a system, you'd see a few cards at a time being stolen. That's not what you usually see.
Okay.
So it is possible, but it's unlikely.
So you would have to literally go after, to try to get any amount of this information in a real way, you'd have to literally go after it each and every time the information is transferred. So you'd have to have something.
You basically have to be listening all the time and have the capability to decrypt high-grade encryption. I would say that's the hard one. The easy way is to crack the database.
Well, this is the federal government we're talking.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, Representative Head and then Senator Haskell.
Thank you, Senator Brakey. I just have a quick question. Before you start this, do you have all the certification that this person is actually 18 and been verified by someone else, or do they just come to you with a birth certificate? How does that work?
They deal with their provider on that, and it's the provider that uses the system. So the provider will indicate, actually what they actually do is they enter the date of birth of the patient, and the system decides, based on that date of birth, whether they're over or under 18. It does not keep the date of birth, it only uses it for the date calculation.
But they don't have any, to get a driver's license, you have to have a birth certificate, a place that you live, you have to, but for this you don't. Who gets that verification?
Again, I'd probably have to refer you to the department on that, but
Okay.
I don't recall ever getting my doctor my birth certificate.
Okay.
It's not the sort of thing that I generally do in my relations with my medical profession.
Oh, sure, sure. Does the doctor have to do that, or just the provider? Just-
I don't know the answer.
You don't know?
We write software.
I'm gonna ask him later. Thank you.
Senator Haskell?
Thank you. I appreciate the information. We didn't get an opportunity to capture your name, however. You didn't get an opportunity to introduce yourself. Could you do that, please? Then I have a question for you.
My name is Todd Holders, and I'm the Director of Development at Informing.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tolbert. How long has this system been operating?
Since January 5th
Of
this year,
15,
2015.
so not a real long time. I was just looking for some historic information about whether or not you had anybody attempt to listen in that you're aware of.
Not that we are aware of.
But that's a pretty short time period. Thank you very much.
Representative Burstein and Representative Gattine.
Thank you, Senator. Sir, can Inform Me change the system so the docs get this information if they put in a date of birth or zip code? Can they retrieve information from the system, providers?
No, it's not really built for them to retrieve data. And they are actually the repository of the original.
So it's
data.
just-
This
it's just
information
one
will already
way.
be in the provider's own medical file, so they have very little reason to want to retrieve it.
And can in this process, can the department come to you and say, we want a little more information, and you just change it and give it to them with it?
Well, they have to collect more information. As I said, we do not store any of the information we collect except for those 4 bits that I've mentioned a few times now. So
No,
think-
I mean, like, can they say to you, I'd like you to collect some more information? And
Certainly could.
and you would just change that, right? Is that how that would work?
I imagine, yes, if they asked us to change it, we would. I would hope that they would have the legal authority to do so.
I guess that's kind of my question, but you may not be able to answer that. Thank you.
So, I have a couple questions. And I apologize if this came up with Karen. What was the process before January 5th? What process did you supply? There's that question.
We supplied no process before January 5th ourselves. The department did have something else in place, but I am not sure.
So when, so I can ask this on that question. Another issue that came up during the public hearing is, so when someone is entering this information on the online PDF form, is that information somehow kept locally after they send the form? Would somebody be able to go into somebody's computer on the client side?
On the doctor's own computer?
Yeah. I mean, is simply the entering of that information create something on, on the local computer that a hacker could come in and extract?
Anytime you type anything into a computer, it's certainly entered into that computer memory, at least temporarily. How long it's kept is going to depend on, the way the operating system works. So yes, possibly, but of course, doctors are going to be using computers anyhow to keep their medical records, or information is going to be recorded in a computer in the doctor's office. So I don't think this is actually adding any additional vulnerability that will be there anyhow.
Is there a cost to the chamber? I mean, I assume you charge the department to do
We
this
do,
work?
yes, in fact, we do.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Do you know, can you share with us what the cost was?
It was done
for
as
the
a
chamber?
time and materials project. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I can get it to you, but it
Yeah.
was under 50,000.
It was under $50,000. This is a relatively big, is this a relatively sizable,
As
significant?
online services go, no, it was probably in the medium range. We have done a little smaller, we started to get bigger, it's just kind of on average. That's what we do.
Nice.
It has generated more public interest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask what you're charging for your time to be here today. But okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate you folks coming here today and answering these questions. This was helpful. Thank you.
All right. We're gonna go down the line, so Representative Stuckey, Representative Hammond, and Representative Vashon.
Thank you. So the form that I've lost already, and I'm going to get it over, I will turn it back in. But is there when it comes back to the provider, can the provider enter information?
Can we what?
Can the provider enter information on the form?
Well, that's basically the purpose
Could
of the
you make
system.
sure you're, I know he's over
I'm
there,
sorry.
could you make sure you're speaking
Very sorry.
into the mic?
Yeah, the purpose of the provider entering information into the system in the first place is to fill out various blanks on that form, yes.
But after, I mean, the provider fills it out, it gets sent to you, and it comes back and then gets printed.
Yes.
I guess, so my question is, if it got sent to you with section 2, the left-hand side of section 2 blank, when it came back, would the provider be able to fill in the information?
No. They're required to enter all of the information that is printed on that form before they can generate.
And is that a security thing, or is that a?
Just a business requirement, that those items were required to actually get to the final step, which is to generate the PDF form that you have in the hand. So no part of that would be blank.
A business, I'm not quite sure. Whose requirement is it?
The requirement that we, when we work with the department to generate the service, to build the service, we worked out requirements that we then built into the online service, and that is one.
I'll just try asking once more, and then I'll go back. So if it were to come back, is there any reason, what's the reason that the identifying information can't get filled in at the provider's office after the information that needs to get retained gets delivered? What, I mean, could the question be, the question that gets sent to across the internet back to the department be, is the patient younger or older than 18? And the section 1 of the form gets filled out by the provider, the zip code and the over/under 18 gets filled out, and when it comes back, the rest of the information gets entered.
And I think this might go back to what Todd was speaking to, earlier, in that might be a better question for the department, because the way it is built was the way that they had asked us to build it, which was to have the information, entered.
Yeah.
The way you're suggesting is that they wouldn't do that, they would
Right.
just collect, the 4 items that.
So before I ask the department that question, which I will,
Yep.
I'm trying to understand if there is, just from the mechanics, the security mechanics of the back and forth, is there any reason why that couldn't happen?
Certainly be done.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Hammond?
Thank you. My questions are actually for the department, so if either one can continue this question.
Okay. Okay, I know Representative Vashon is here, so if you want to wait until we're done here. Representative Vashon?
Mine are actually a little bit more of an observation and comment from healthcare in general. As a health insurance agent with personal information, for anybody to get health insurance today, they have to give all information. Anybody that's done an application has to give all information, which all can be tracked. So now we're working on this with medical marijuana and trying to kind of integrate this into a mainstream alternative delivery of healthcare. That it makes logical sense to me that you would want to gather information with regards to who's using it, where they're using it, for what reason they're using it. So I find it interesting that we're so upset about gathering that information, probably for some obvious reasons in that we're transitioning with the acceptance of this, but at the same time, if we're going to move this toward mainstreaming it into delivery of healthcare, I just say to everybody, we're gonna need to have that personal information. It is what it is in healthcare. So I just, listening to all this testimony this morning, I've just been grappling with all of that.
Representative Vashon, just to respond to my personal thoughts on that, and I'm sure there might be some other people who like it. I'm sure there's a host of concerns about it, but I think one of the big concerns is the current federal status of marijuana. And with that still being considered illegal on the federal level, having that information in one place like we do for many other forms of medicine, that we don't have these prohibitions on the federal level, that while currently the federal government, maybe not as much as I'd like them to be, but they're currently somewhat hands-off on this, that does not mean that they will always be, so long as it's still prohibited on the federal level. So I think, myself personally, I think it's reasonable for people to have concerns while those laws are still in place on the federal level, and until such time that they aren't. Hopefully that they will sometime come soon. But anyway, Representative Vashon.
Just to follow up and to put it in the context of the hearings that we heard today, where people were saying, oh my gosh, no, we don't want that information out there. Hearing that Maine really is kind of leading the country in medicinal marijuana, it makes sense that we're grappling with this right now and how to measure it. And you know, I think that's what's happening when you're in a state that is actually kind of carving or blazing the trail, and how to work with that. So.
Representative Gattine, and then Representative Hymanson.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate the comment you made at the end there, Representative Vashon, and I think that we're trying to lead and trying to do something here that's better in a lot of respects than the other states do. Is the reason why we sit here to deal with 13 bills and the heroes. But again, a lot of the information that insurance companies maintain and store and allow to be sent through all sorts of a complex regulatory area, and a lot of the reasons